I used to put on the front page here a photograph of our Cannon open pit, but it's just finished. So I thought, let's telegraph where we're going. And it's a cartoon, but it shows the Cannon model with the recently completed RC that was done underneath the pit. And the results were announced this morning, and I'll give you a feel for those in the presentation. But needless to say, our eyes are now on the next stage of our company going into underground at Cannon. And it's not the world's biggest deposit, but it's a very, very good one. And I hope I convince you of that in due course. What are we as a company? If this is the first time you've looked at SouthernGold, well, we've got projects in Kalgoorlie and South Korea, which may sound like a strange combination, but they bring very different things to the company. Kalgoorlie is really the engine room where we generate a lot of our cash, and that funds the activities of the company. And South Korea provides a lot of blue sky to the story. Either way, we focus on high-grade gold deposits. And when we say high-grade, I mean high-grade, and you'll get a feel for that shortly. We're cashed up. We have a very tight capital structure, only 47 million shares on issue. And we have a first-class technical team in the group. That's very important for those of you who are investing at this end of the business, because at the end of the day, these guys drive the success technically, and they're the ones that make discoveries. A few names there: Douglas Kerwin, Chris Bowden and Justin Gum. Douglas Kerwin is exploration manager for Ivanhoe Mines, has found many, many deposits all around the world, perhaps one of the more successful explorationists, and a first-class geologist, and that's no exaggeration. Chris Bowden is his protege, if you will. Chris did his PhD on the rocks in South Korea, and they're both true believers in the potential of the South Korean play. World-class geologists looking for that world-class deposit. Justin Gum is our principal geologist in Australia, and he is the guy who led the team that found the Kali deposit in the Tanamite. So another world-class deposit, and Justin's a real outside-the-box type thinker. Kalgoorlie, the engine room, and Korean blue sky. We're looking to develop mines in both jurisdictions, underground at Cannon, and in joint venture with Bluebird at Gubong in Korea. I'll talk a bit more about that shortly. Ex-Normandy NFM people in the crew in Australia and ex-Ivanhoe Mines people in the crew in South Korea. Two very different jurisdictions, different approaches. Kalgoorlie, that's where we'll generate our cash flow in the near term, and in Korea, we believe that we're going to be hot on the case for a world-class discovery. This is a bit more detail around our capital structure. We just paid a 3 cents per share dividend. That probably surprises 99% of you in the room, because we're only a $10 million company. But we take return to shareholders very seriously, and I guess at the end of the day, that's why we're here. If we assume that 25% of the people take up the dividend reinvestment plan, the cash cost to the company will be about $800,000. So, we can afford to pay the dividend and also drill our projects at the same time. So this goes to the corporate strategy. How do we think as a company? Why are we a bit different as a junior? And I think it's fair to say that everyone talks about focusing on cash generation, but we actually do it. We actually generated a lot of cash from our Cannon mine. We're looking to do it again in joint venture with Bluebird in Korea. We've got a really good team behind us, but at the end of the day, when you boil it down, what we're trying to do is to search for world-class deposits, but organically funded. So we will basically crystallise value from the assets that we currently own and re-inject 90% of that money back into the business, but look to return perhaps 10% of our cash flow back to shareholders. We take that total shareholder return benchmark pretty seriously. So how are we actually going on that front? It's always a little bit subjective, this sort of stuff, so I've just highlighted that it's a bit complicated, this graph, but I'm basically trying to illustrate the returns to shareholders over the last 2 financial years. And you can see there that I've also made 2 placements in that period. The first one at a 25% premium at 35 cents a share, and the next one at 35% premium at 38.6 cents. The main takeaway, though, is you can see that the philosophy behind this is the protection of shareholders. So the trend is good. There is ups and downs. There's peaks and troughs. But the trend is also good, and we're placing stock at a premium to the trend. You can see too, I've highlighted where our current share price is, around about, well, today we're actually up around 28 cents, 29 cents, but at the end of the day, we're currently in a trough. So the old saying is buy the troughs, right? So I'm saying to you, if you believe we can maintain this trend, then now's a good time to have a good look at the company. In Australia, a good illustration of how we do things is the Cannon Gold Mine. So on the bottom right there, you can sort of see how we generated some significant value from monetising that asset. It was about a 100,000 ounce resource, which at the end of the day resulted in 52,000 ounces recovered. That generated a profit to Southern Gold of just under $14 million, which is more than our market capitalisation. So you can see how powerful that is for someone of our market cap. Sure, we had to give some of the profit away to Westgold in order for that pit to occur, and they did the processing, the transport, they basically managed the whole box and dice. So we've actually given them all the risk, including the financing risk, and we've actually taken 50% of the profit at the end of the day. So I think that's not a bad deal for a junior. You're basically realising value way in excess of your current market cap. So we've got two sides to the business, Kalgoorlie and South Korea. This gives you a sense of where we are in Kalgoorlie. All the shades of brown are basically Southern Gold's projects. We have about half a dozen of them, but I'm only going to focus on 3 today, well, very quickly anyway. We're not focusing on anything, it's just a quick tour. But basically, the main message from this is that we've got a significant ground position in a premier gold district in Australia. And our neighbours are the majors. So, you know, we've got the Silver Lakes and the Westgolds. These are basically our next door neighbours. So we've got a fantastic ground position and huge potential. And indeed, I wouldn't be surprised if you really boiled it down that the asset value, the actual strategic value of that ground, is probably more than our current enterprise value. So let's have a quick look. We've talked about the cash that was generated from Cannon, but really what is happening now is our mind is turning to the underground. And today we announced the results of that RC program I mentioned at the beginning. And the sort of results we're getting there are ounce per tonne type results. So, you know, 5 metres at 30 grams, that kind of thing. So we're getting very, very good grades. It's likely to lift the resource block model grade and extent. True thicknesses are somewhere between 2 and 5 metres, in some places even wider than that. The deposit is open at depth. And while it's not a particularly big deposit, it's a very high grade one. Some more examples of some of the results at the top of the sheet there. And you can sort of see we get some good grades and widths. So we expect the lion's share of the ore coming out of this mine to be north of 10 grams per tonne, or the purple zone as I call it. You can see there with the grade distribution on the bottom right. You know, anything purple is good. And I guess the key result that came from that drilling program is that we've extended the purple zone. You can see on the left-hand side diagram, there are 2 purple zones and we've drilled in between them and we got 7 metres at 17. So what that does is it really extends that purple zone, if you will, between those two. So we expect that to result in a significant uplift in contained metal. That was a very quick overview of Cannon, but I'm going to keep flying along because I've got a lot to cover. So Cannon, in addition to Cannon, we're working at a place called Glandor, which is right next door. We think there's the potential here for some small, high-grade pits, very small ones, maybe only 5,000 to 10,000 ounces in each one, but again, probably very profitable. But interestingly enough, at this project, we've got a 1.5 kilometre long trend, which we call Lake Consols, and we're chipping ore grade on vein that's outcropping at surface along that 1.5 kilometre long trend. In some places at extremely high grades, up to 168 grams per tonne in one case. So you can see in the upper right-hand segment a place of what we call the Dibbler zone, and we've been returning 50 grams per tonne in altered dolerite. So we're pretty excited by this, and we'll be drilling it in September. At Kawana, that's right next door to Silver Lake Resources. Silver Lake are basically mining projects there along that banded iron formation. The left-hand side image is showing you a magnetic image. The banded iron formation goes into our ground, which is the blue outline of the tenements there. It's a bit of a neurology play at the end of the day, but we think that the fundamentals of the geology there are very good for the possibility of finding some additional resources along that trend. And we've got more than 20 kilometres of strike extent to work with. We've already identified a whole bunch of anomalies, and we'll be drilling that in October. So that's actually an example of the sort of projects where we've got a chance of actually finding something quite significant. So, down to South Korea. This is where I said we had the Ivanhoe Group guys involved in that play. So this is a fundamentally geological story, very technical, but the main message you should really take away is that Korea is a first-class geological district which has seen no real modern exploration in recent times. And it's wedged in geological time between Japan and China. There are world-class deposits in both Japan and China, and nothing world-class has yet been uncovered in Korea. We believe that we could do so in two different ways. One is with our joint venture with Bluebird, where we've got a project called Gubong, and another is on our exploration ground, where we're actually looking at some really exciting stuff. Huge amount of value there, because a lot of the projects we've got have got old historical workings which we can reopen. For those of you not familiar with Korea, it's more like Japan than, say, Southeast Asia. So think Japan, not Indonesia or Philippines or anything like that. It's got a very solid legal system. It's got better infrastructure than Australia. It really surprises people when they travel there just how advanced it is. So, it's not just Gangnam style dancing. There's actually a lot of stuff that's really going to help mining projects move forward. In particular, it's got one of the largest manufacturing bases in the world. And I'll give you a quick anecdote of how that can actually apply. We actually needed to modify one of the drill rigs, and we had a situation where we were sitting in a restaurant and we basically drew up a plan of the rig modification literally on a napkin, and 24 hours later the rig had been remanufactured by a local supplier and reconfigured in literally 24 hours. So basically these guys can manufacture anything, and there's huge potential to tap into that. We will have our challenges there. Land access is difficult because you've got a lot of landowners. Landowners are split into small blocks. And so that's going to be a challenge for us. And also the mining industry is not well developed. So we're going to need to import labour or import expertise, which is where Bluebird come into it. So we've got half a dozen major projects there. I'm only going to touch very quickly on three. Quick word on Bluebird. They're our joint venture partner in Korea on a couple of our projects, principally the Gubong one, which is they're starting on. Colin Patterson and Charles Barclay highlighted in the centre of the slide. These are old veterans of the industry. Colin Patterson's actually here, by the way. If you're interested in having a more in-depth talk about the potential of Korea and indeed what Colin and Charles bring to the table, I urge you to come to our booth, particularly perhaps tomorrow morning. Make sure Colin's there. Hopefully he won't have too much to drink tonight. And we will have a good chat about what's the potential in terms of South Korea going forward. But basically what Bluebird are attracted to are the scale of the projects there. You can see a Google Earth image with the drape of the old underground mine that's at Gubong. This is literally multi-kilometre scale type systems. The photograph at the bottom there, the vein that you see illustrated in white at the top actually goes underneath the photographer and probably for another half a kilometre behind them. That's why we have an exploration target circa 1 million ounces going 6 to 12 grams per tonne here. It's big and we're excited, and we're basically looking at Bluebird in the middle of trying to open this up. They're literally out on the ground at the moment. These guys are experts at reopening of old historical mines. They're underground, narrow vein mining guys, going after the more difficult deposits. This one has got substantial scale, so this is their sort of bread and butter, if you will. It was mined at a time where the gold price was $38 an ounce, and what was probably waste then is probably ore now. So we see huge potential even just opening up the old mine and re-accessing the workings. Typically when you do that, you've got several years of work where you can clean the mine up and you've got cash flow for several years, which is why we're talking about a small pilot scale thing just initially to get the cash flow going. A couple of other systems that we're working on there. Waiyu South is one that looks really exciting. This is literally one that hasn't seen much drilling at all. It's a mountain that's completely altered. We've got epithermal quartz veins sticking out of the ground. We're chipping up to 1,000 ppm silver, 18 grams per tonne gold, so we're basically getting 1 ounce per tonne type dirt. Really exciting stuff. Kochung is a 2.5 kilometre long system, massive system that we've been getting up to 24 grams per tonne gold and 650 silver. So these are big systems, early days, but exciting stuff. I'm racing because I can see I've only got 20 seconds. That's what we're doing in the next 12 months. We're not there just paying salaries. We're very active. We're drilling a lot of the projects. We're adding a lot of value and not twiddling our thumbs. You can see there, I've basically said you get a $6 or $7 million enterprise value in our company, and you get a potential gold mine in Cannon, a potential gold mine at Gubong, that's perhaps midterm. But somebody made the comment to me the other day that there was an ASX-listed company with a 1 kilometre long mineralised trend that got a market cap of $20 million, and it had no drilling, just rock chips on surface. And I could say, well, I've got 3 of those. Lake Consols, Wolu and Kochang are all 3 projects I touched on very quickly in this presentation. And they've all got multi-kilometre long trends, all going several hundred grams per tonne. Thanks very much.